this game is a stamina game. So just keep making shit. Like this project died 6 or 7 times and we just kept pushing it. And I think just keep making films and eventually you kind of find your way. And I would say, I've studied other people's ways of making it in the industry and I carved a completely different path for myself. That's unlike anyone look at as a mentor. So you kind of find your own way and I think it's just about being persistent and keeping doing it and doing it because you love it.
Welcome to Inside the Audition, the podcast where we go behind the scenes for a deep dive look into the world of auditions. I'm Joe Lars Larson, creator of Actors Audition Club, an international community helping actors book your dream roles in TV, film, and theater.
And I'm Brandon Knox, actor, producer, and co-host. Each episode, we chat with actors and industry professionals to share their audition experiences, insights, and advice.
We provide actors with actionable tips, strategies, and resources to help you elevate your auditions.
We demystify the often intimidating and misunderstood world of auditions to help you succeed.
So whether you're just starting out on your acting journey or you're a seasoned pro, join our Actors Audition Club members as we go Inside the Audition. Hey actors, do you want to nail your next audition? Download our free audition success checklist from Actors Audition Club. This checklist is packed with everything you need to be fully prepared, focused, and confident. Whether you're new to auditions or you're a seasoned pro, this checklist is your ultimate guide to owning your auditions and making an unforgettable impression with a standout self-tape. Do not leave success to chance. Get your free audition success checklist today at actorsauditionclub.com/checklist. Once again, that's actorsauditionclub.com/checklist and take control of your audition journey today. Hey, it's me, Joey Freddy Larson, and today we've got a very special episode in a series of episodes featuring some of the cast and crew from a new horror anthology series called Tales from the Void. I was lucky enough to be cast in a lead role in one of the episodes on Tales from the Void, so I thought, why not have some chats with some of the cast and crew, creators. You can watch Tales from the Void on Screambox in the US. That's the streaming site Screambox. In Canada, you can watch it on Amazon Prime and also on Super Channel. It is a horror thriller anthology series, super cool in the realm of Black Mirror, Twilight Zone, Outer Limits. All of the stories are based on the Reddit subthread No Sleep, which features some real creepypasta type stories. Again, if you're a fan of No Sleep, you're going to love this show. So enjoy today's episode featuring one of the cast and crew from Tales from the Void. My episode is the premiere episode called Into the Unknown. I know you're going to love it. Check out Tales from the Void on Screambox or Amazon Prime Super Channel. Here comes the episode. Hey, it's me, Joey Freddy Larson. My guest today is an independent filmmaker. He's the founder of Envoi Entertainment, and he's also the showrunner, director, and creator of the new Screambox original series, Tales from the Void, which I had the good fortune to being cast in the premiere episode. I'm here today with Francesco Loschiavo. I nailed that?
Hey, Joey.
Did I get
Nailed
it?
it. Great intro. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, buddy. Great to see you. First of all, congrats. It's been what now? I guess it's been about a month and a half since the release.
Yeah.
So I know this, like any film production, whether it's a TV series or a movie, maybe people on the outside don't realize how much blood, sweat, and tears and years of your life go into this. So can you tell us a little bit about the origin story of Tales from the Void? And I think this goes back, 6-7 years?
About that, yeah. We've had the idea for a while. We probably started working on it maybe 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, the origin story was, so I, grew up on Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark and not creepy stories, was it freaky stories? Like most kids that watched YTV in the 90s. So I was always into short form horror. and found myself kind of reading no sleep stories late at night, a couple at night when I kind of stumbled onto the forum back in like I think 2011 when it started. And I just like was super into it and like found that it was kind of filling that void in my life of like what I kind of grew up in of watching a couple creepy stories before bed. And I just one day kind of went to my friend John, who we work on projects together, and had said, I'm just shocked no one's made this into a show. And some of these stories are just like unbelievable. And a few of them had stuck with me for a couple days after reading them. So we tried to develop it into a concept for a TV show. And the community's been super supportive, which has been great. And, the whole idea was short, snackable horror that you can watch in 30 minutes. I'm a huge fan of like Black Mirror and Cabinet of Curiosities, but it's like, it's a full movie commitment. So we tried to do something that was a bit shorter form, and we had someone describe it at one of the test screenings I think that you were at as like a fucked up Goosebumps for adults, which is kind of exactly what I wanted to make. So yeah, that's kind of where it came from, and just my love of kind of anthology and short form horror.
So what was the process to like for those? I know we have a lot of actors listen to the episodes talking about auditions, but a great transition for a lot of actors is to start creating their own content and writing their own series and greenlighting their own things rather than just being waiting to be cast in other people's projects. So can you walk us through like how do you get something like this off the ground? From sourcing the stories to writing the screenplays to getting the funding was probably one of the hardest things to do. So can
Mhm.
you like a little? I know this could be a week-long course on this, but in a nutshell, a little crash course here. So if somebody wanted to do like you did and actually get something made and out there, how does one do that?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I think like for me, I've never had big Hollywood producer come down and say, "Hey, I'll take a chance on you, kid. I saw your short film. You're great." So I just like I've always just made my own shit because I just don't like waiting to be able to do things that I'm passionate about. And yeah, I like my kind of motto is going to sound cocky, but like my thing is like there's people who say things and there's people who do things. And I just got tired of saying that I was a filmmaker and was like, I'm just going to go make films. So my approach with it was like I spent a long time curating the stories. That was the first thing, was making sure like the source material was good. John and I spent John Kelly's my co-showrunner and one of the executive producers on the series, and he wrote a lot of the episodes as well. Him and I spent, I would say, 2 years writing the show, doing lots of rounds of notes, lots of development. Like reps on scripts is like super important. Like I think the best way to get cast and stuff or get your stuff made or get to direct is to write dope shit and then say, hey, like you can only make this if I'm in it or if I'm directing it, right?
Mm.
And then what we did, and I've done a couple talks on like how we made the show, and like to me this is the most important, is I spent like probably a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks putting together a really well curated pitch deck, which is how we got Joe Lynch and a lot of the salespeople involved. And then we got some grant funding, but we shot like a 2 minute teaser trailer that was like a proof of concept. And then the other piece of it was just like a full package of like what the budget would be, our plan to kind of get there. And but I think it really starts with like a good pitch package and a tight log line. So like for us, it was like, a horror anthology series based on short stories from this, we called it the internet's largest independent horror community. And there's 18 million people, within that community. So that was kind of our pull of like, hey, there's an audience for this. Then you would, go through our pitch package and see that we had really well curated kind of different subgenres of horror to like entice people. We had a teaser trailer that was 2 minutes that could show you that like, hey, we can actually film shit and we can execute on this. And then our whole thing was if we got them to read the scripts, they were interested. It's getting people to the script that's like the toughest thing, and the scripts
Right.
have to deliver when you get people there. So that was kind of our approach, and then we applied to a bunch of different things. And I think we put a lot of groundwork in up front on the development of it. And what ended up happening was we got into, I think it's called the Gotham now, but at the time it was the Independent Filmmaker Project. So we got picked as like one of 10 series out of like 1,000 applicants in the States to
Wow.
pitch to sales agents and companies. We got a couple grants in Canada to do the teaser trailer and then ended up getting production funding. But like I would say this time 2020, We get a small grant from the Canadian government to make a web series, and we had a sales agent. And then it was like a 2 year uphill battle to like upscale it from a web series to a TV show. And a big part of that was getting the big US directors that we got, getting a US distributor, getting a bigger budget, going union with everything. So it kind of like grew beyond our wildest dreams, but like the things that remained consistent throughout the whole process was killer pitch package, killer teaser trailer, good scripts, and just getting that in front of as many people as possible.
I love that. Yeah, congrats again. I love the idea. I think it can seem so daunting to people, but it sounds like you do the next thing. Like I think a lot of people with any big project, they need to see like all green lights all the way to the end before they get started, rather than no, you got to do the first step and the next step and the next step. And the idea of doing what you can with what you have now, rather than being like, well, I need $5 million to even start this. So kudos to you for doing the pitch deck and the teaser trailer. And the pitch deck, that was what really intrigued me when I first saw it, when it came through my agent. You had attached the pitch deck, the link to our episode. Our episode is called, or my episode that I'm in is Into the Unknown, but the story was called The Black Square on the No Sleep thread. So I got to read that and see all the materials. And when I saw that, okay, this is based on stories with a built-in audience in my head, and I don't feel this way on every project. A lot of the times you see one and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna audition for it because it's gonna be a paycheck and a gig. But as
Yeah.
soon as I saw that, I was like, this sounds really cool. I think this has a chance to be really successful, to get a lot of eyeballs on it. So I remember, not all auditions are equal, but there's some where when you do put an audition in, you're like, fingers are crossed, and you have a little extra wanting of it. I try to do my best to detach a little bit, because a lot of it is out of our control as actors once we do audition. But that was one when I remember doing it. I think it was, I want to say it was April before we shot, when I did my first audition, and I was like chomping at the bit. I was like, this sounds really fucking cool. And then I don't know if you knew this story. I didn't hear anything until like July. So
Mhm.
it was one of those ones to me where I was like, oh, this just went away. I was excited at the time, submitted it, and then you go on to the next thing, and sometimes you hear, sometimes you don't. So in my head, it had just gone away and was like one of the ones that I didn't get. And then I got an email from my agent saying, hey, they're looking for you at the TFTV callbacks. Where are you? And I replied back to her, what the fuck are you talking about? What the hell is TFTV? I have no idea what you're talking about right now, because it was 3 months later. And what had happened is she had emailed me 2 weeks before my callback to say the callbacks are happening, and this is the date and your scheduled time.
Yeah.
And my email somehow got lost in translation. I don't know if it was a typo or just a Google Gmail thing, and I never got it. So I'm like shitting my pants, like, what the fuck? I'm supposed to be at a callback now.
Oh
I,
wow.
I
I had
pride
no
myself on
idea.
being a professional, and like I always show up. I'm always on time. And here I am. I'm no showing. It was a Zoom callback with Joe Lynch through Man Casting here in Toronto. And so I'm on a call with my agent, and I'm like, she said, well, they're wrapping up the session now. If you have time, you can get there. And I'm like, I haven't looked at those scenes in 4 months now. Like, and part of me is like, the fear of like, I don't want to miss out and not show and look like I'm some flaky, unprofessional guy. But then I'm like, if I show up now, I'm all flustered, and I was like kind of pissed off that I missed the email. And then I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know the scenes anymore. I would have to have the script in hand. So I ended up
Yeah.
telling her, I was like, not to sound cocky, but I was like, if I hop on right now, I'm not going to be able to deliver anything better than my original auditions. So either they have another time or book me off of my original audition, because nothing I'm going to do right now is going to be better. And I hung up with my agent, and like, I wasn't mad at her. I was just kind of mad at the universe. And I like rage screamed into a closet like this. These opportunities as actors, as you know, and as filmmakers and artists, like what you'd consider like the real cool opportunities, they don't come along every day. So I was like, what the fuck? Like, how did I miss this thing? And luckily enough for me, Man Casting and Joe and the team, they got back to me. They originally scheduled me the next day, which was still a little bit of a tight turnaround, and then I guess they ran long, and I ended up having the weekend to prepare. So I was able to take a deep breath and had a great experience and call back with Joe, and lo and behold, lucky enough to get cast. So that's my little story. I just wanted to tell you that personally, where I was
I
like,
had no idea that
I
happened.
was
I'm glad you rescheduled it because like we would have waited for you, and I'm glad we did.
right,
And, like that shit happens. Like you wanna be prepared, right?
right.
Like yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a real test of like it was the fear of missing out and the fear of looking professional, but I kind of I had to stand in my own power and just be like, no, I'm not going to be able to do anything good right now. I haven't looked at like I'm not fresh with the scenes. I maybe could have pulled it off with sides in hand, but not well. I think I would have done a worse job than my original thing. So, can you speak about being inside the audition? We talk a lot about actors' process and mindset and how they approach auditions. What is it like from your end of things? How do you view auditions as a producer, showrunner, director?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think like we had a really unconventional approach to casting, and I'm kind of new to show running, so there's probably some people rolling their eyes that are going to hear what I'm going to say here. But we did a really different thing. So like we did three sides for each casting thing, which is normally you give one scene. We did three. We tried to do something that was like, emotional, something that like was a creepier moment, and then we did like a big scare and like a reaction because it's an interesting one. Like sometimes you get really good talent, but they look weird when they scream. And if we're making a horror show, like you have to really sell those moments. So
Mm.
we did a wide range of stuff that we covered, and it was a lot, man. Like there was 15, 20 minute casting tapes for every single person. And I can tell you honestly that John and I watched every single one. We didn't do a conventional approach with a casting agent. We actually watched every tape. We had
Wow.
600 reads for Carrie was 600 reads for that story, and we watched every single one. We were at a TIFF party a couple weeks ago, and like I recognized half the room from just the amount of tapes that we watched. So I think that's a little bit unusual. But our first time making a show in Canada and first time working with I shouldn't say making a show in Canada, but we've produced movies and stuff. But like first time working with a proper casting agent, I was just excited to see as much talent as possible. So we watched everything, and then my approach kind of as a director is like the first kind of rounds you're kind of trying to whittle it down to getting all the people that just can't act kind of out of the mix, and then you're kind of doing a round of like, well, who looks and feels the part, and then especially when you're casting like families, we're then looking at, well, what combinations of people is kind of believable, and then when we get into kind of callbacks, a lot of what I focus on as a director was giving adjustments,
Mm.
even if I didn't need an adjustment, to see if you could take direction. And a lot of the time we would cast the people that could make an adjustment kind of on the spot, because then we know if we're not getting it, then we can tweak it. Now there is like some scenarios where you get talent that just looks the part, understands the character. Maybe they struggle adjusting, but like they just know the character so well that it's kind of okay. And that's a bit of a risk in that kind of situation. So we didn't have too many of those. But yeah, that was kind of our processes. John and I would watch every single tape. We gave much longer scenes than you're normally supposed to. We watched everyone kind of all the way through. We would score them and then kind of run through that checklist. And it's interesting, like the way you see the character when you write it on the page, I feel like changes a bit, because when you
Right.
watch so many performances, then you have a choice of interpretation of the character. Even if I think about your character Bill, like it was between you and one other guy, and I think our big thing with your, I don't think I've told you this, but at least for me, when I watched your performance, like your selling of like the dread when looking into the square and kind of your ability to like command the room as like the community leader, I think came across really well. But we had another interpretation where it was like almost like a grizzled kind of older Bill that was just kind of worn down from life and was like almost played it as like pissed off that this is going on type of thing. So it was very different like takes on the performance. And I'm glad that we went with yours. I think it worked out like perfectly. And I know Joe rewrote his whole shot list after seeing your casting tape because of the way you reacted looking into camera, pretending that the square was there. We did a lot of like from the POV of the square because of that. So it's a fun, like, it's one of my like favorite part of the process because you're kind of you're making pretty big choices on how the film or the show is going to turn out by those decisions that you make. And I think it's one of the most important parts of the process.
Hey, actors, are you ready to take charge of your acting career? Start tracking your audition progress with our free audition success tracker tool from Actors Audition Club. This incredible tool has been designed to help you log every audition, review what worked, and highlight your areas for improvement. Tracking your audition journey is a key to growing as an actor, and this incredible tracker tool makes it easy. Download your audition success tracker today at actorsauditionclub.com/tracker. That's actorsauditionclub.com/tracker, and start building your roadmap to audition success today. Yeah, I mean, there's that age-old saying, 90% of directing is casting. Like it's tough to change and tough to fix a lot of things if you've miscast people. Speaking of my audition and looking down the barrel, that was something that I was really proud of, and I attribute that to one of my acting coaches, Tom Todoroff, who just encouraged us to make bold decisions and to take big swings. And if we're ever feeling like, oh, is this too much, or is this like, are they going to like this, like to steer clear of that and just go for it. And what you're speaking of, there was a moment where the black square, the paranormal thing, in my head, as soon as I saw that, it was just instant. My first instinct was, this needs to be down the barrel. And a lot of actors listening to the show might be, well, what do you mean down the barrel? You can't look into the lens. They're going to think you're a rookie, or they're going to think you're a novice. But it was so deliberate. It made so much sense. And I did it I think in my auditions, almost as an extreme close up too, where I got really uncomfortably
Oh
close
yeah.
and tight. And then, so for me to get the validation from you and from Joe to say like, hey, we saw your audition, that changed the way we looked at the show and changed how we shot the black square. And I think pretty much every character, when they were looking at the black square, you guys shot them right down the barrel, down the lens. So that was a real cool lesson and just validation of like, take risks as an artist, take risks as an actor. Don't worry about being wrong. I've got another coach who always used to say, there's no such thing as right or wrong, but there is weak or strong. And just don't worry about right or wrong. Just make sure that you're making strong choices one way or the other. So that was a great lesson for me personally. Getting back to when you're paring it down, one of the frustrating things about it as an actor is, like you mentioned, 600 auditions for one show, for one episode, and it's a game where only the winning horse wins and everybody else gets the consolation prizes or the play at home game or the steak knife set.
Mm-hmm.
Of those, I think an important thing that actors need to realize, though, is just because they didn't book the role doesn't mean that they weren't worthy, doesn't mean they're not a good actor. You mentioned mixing and matching families. There might have been someone that you loved, but you couldn't find their wife, or you couldn't find their mother or father or kids to match. And I know this is really tough generalizing, for some of the lead roles, how many options could you have gone where you're like, yeah, this person could do it, this person could do it. You picked your lead horse, but for actors listening, like, how many people could have done those roles?
You typically get down to like 3 or 4, but like it depends. Like, depends what you're looking for. Like, we were looking for, Latino kind of teenagers for one role, and we had to go out 3 times across Canada. We had another role that was one of the episodes that ended up getting pushed to season 2, but we had a haunting that took place during a Shiva, and it was meant to be an all Jewish cast. So we were looking for people that could speak Yiddish like authentically. That took a long time to cast. You have a lot less options. If I'm looking for a straight white male like lead, yeah, you're gonna get lots of there you go. You're gonna get lots of applications. So it depends what you're looking for. It's also like, there's certain demographics in Canada that's easier to find certain groups of people. We kind of kept it only to Canadian, so struggled in certain roles.
Right.
But yeah, like to your point about like, it can be, I'm sure it weighs on people if you're not booking a role for a while, but like it's kind of silly some of the reasons why people get it and some of the reasons people don't. Like there might be, we might have, like I'll take the haunting episode, like there might be an entire family that we've cast that we think we have strong performances everywhere, but we have, two kids and one of them is far better of an actor than the other one, and that kid looks nothing like the other family members.
Mm,
So we would then have to recast the family to be able to work with the kid. And it might be that you have two adults that are like nominally better than each other, but the children is wildly different. And then it's a conversation of like, do we think we can sell that this is actually a family? And it might sound silly, but like, it's, yeah, like there's some that just don't look at all like they're related. It's like we're not going to be able to sell this. Do you know what I mean? Like if
right,
somebody's got red hair and somebody else has like blue eyes and like just yeah, I
right,
don't know, like black jet black hair. It's like it might not play. So like that was one of the things that we that I would just say is like it's not personal. It's
right.
really it's so subjective and it's such like minor things that you might be making a choice on. Like we had even one character, I believe it was Zed, was written as like much older in Plastic Smile, and the actor that auditioned for that gave a really great performance. And we had a conversation with the Adams, and we're like, well, what if like the mother is dating this super young guy? And that gives more dynamics to kind of her character, and they're maybe only together because they help each other get drugs and stuff, and it added an extra layer to the characters, and that completely changed what we casted for. Like
Right.
someone had submitted that was like far younger than the role that we had in mind, and then it kind of created a dynamic that we thought was interesting. So there's lots of stuff like that that like happens on the fly, and it's like, there might be an example like with the haunting episode where we're looking for something really specific that people have to look alike and whatever, and then there might be something else where we change the role because we see something interesting. So you really just don't know. Like having a great performance gets you to the front of the line, but then it's quite subjective. Like even if you look at Mapo, like he looks younger, but like his character, was meant to be in like the early 20s. And we changed that based on performance. So I think it's like it's not always merit based, I guess is what I'm trying to
Right.
say. Like you can be the best actor, but maybe not the best fit for the role.
Right. Yeah, that's a great lesson. And I love what you mentioned even about the breakdowns is that you do your best in a breakdown to put a character description, but sometimes you don't really know until you see it, and then you see a great performance, and that performance would be like, well, maybe we were flexible on, does he need to be tall and lanky? Can he be short and stout? Like those kind of things.
Right.
Um, yeah, that's great for actors to hear that, I think, and just understanding that it's not a personal thing. Like, so I think some actors, especially newer, don't get cast or maybe go through a little streak and then start to feel like, oh, am I no good? I don't have any chops, or like all kinds of self-esteem and self-worth things, rather than just trusting. No, if you did your prep, you put something strong on there, then you just got to wash your hands and walk away from it. And if it's like, if you want that interpretation, then hit me up. And if you don't, then on to the next one. What I wanted to get to. So, can you talk about? So you're going through 600 auditions, and the easy ones is kind of like the no, like where you don't even watch it all the way through. Can you give us some examples on what do you see or hear in an audition that immediately puts you to the pass pile?
To me, it's typically like it's just a gut check if it's not believable. Like so, first of all, if you don't know if you're reading, if you don't memorize the lines in the tape, I'm immediately not watching it. A second thing for me is like I would refer to it as like being flat, where every delivery of every line and every different emotion of it is the same. There's no range in kind of how you're performing. And then to me, going too big, where it's just over the top and it's not kind of believable. Those are kind of things that like you can have a bump where you maybe have a line that's a little too big or a line that's a little flat. But if it's across the whole performance, if we've been watching for 3 or 4 minutes, that's typically something that is a red flag. So for me, like most of the time, a casting director will weed all that stuff out for you.
Right.
We didn't do that because I wanted to see as much of the talent in Canada as possible. But what I find interesting that some people did that I really liked is they they either picked a direction with the character like you did and made a bold choice and it worked, or they gave us options. They gave me like two tapes and it would be a
Right.
radically different take on the character. And you're like, oh, okay, well, this person can adapt, they can change. I prefer it when you make a bold choice. And that's what happens. And I think the bold choices, when you've been watching, 300 or 400 tapes, that's what really stands out. The story I always love to tell that I don't know. I think this is true. I think I'd seen this in an interview or whatever, but I don't know if you know the story of how Margot Robbie booked Wolf of Wall Street. Did you know the story?
Uh, I might have heard it. Retell it. It rings a bell.
So I think they were doing auditions with Leo with tons of different women to play his wife, and it's not in the script, but she slapped him in the argument they were having. And that was the bold choice that she made. She slapped him in the face, and then Leo, without blinking, improv saying, "Do it again." And then she hit him again harder, and then she started yelling. He started yelling at her, "Do it again!" And they just like got into like almost like a fist fight in the scene. And whether that's the right choice or not, it's
Right.
tough to not acknowledge. Oh,
Right.
this is someone who took a risk, right? And
Right.
I think that's what you did with your performance. Is like looking down the barrel and breaking a fourth wall is a bold choice, and no one else did that, and that stood
Right.
out for sure.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. Listeners at home, I'm not 100% sure if Francesco is recommending you slap your scene partner in an audition, but that is definitely a bold move. And hey, if you're standing across Leonardo DiCaprio, then maybe that's the move you got to pull.
I wouldn't recommend it, but it was a bold choice. I think, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. What else did I want to talk about? Can we share a little bit about how did you get into this? I love people's original origin story. Like, how did you get into filmmaking? I think it's a little insane and crazy, and I really appreciate and love any artist. It doesn't matter what the art is, in TV, film, singers, visual artists. The fact that someone chose the road less traveled and chose to zig when everyone else is zagging and not follow the usual 9 to 5 path. How did you have the courage to get into this crazy world of TV and film?
So I grew up, I was like partially raised in a Blockbuster, like most kids in the 90s. So I like always had a big DVD and, Blu-ray collection and was super into sleepovers at my friends and watching movies. And then I kind of went to like business school at like a young age. Like since grade 7, I was in business school. Like I was in like an accelerated program for a bunch of stuff that like, I don't know. I don't know that it's what I wanted to do, but I feel like it was all that I knew because I took courses around that in high school and even in middle school. I took like entrepreneurship and like some accounting stuff in like middle school. So I was in these like weird programs at these specialty schools, and then I ended up going to business school and university, and I kind of like started finishing it and realizing like I don't know that I like this. I don't know that this is what I want to do. And I ended up gravitating to marketing because it was at least like film adjacent and you got to kind of work on kind of creative stuff. But I ended up volunteering for the Windsor Film Festival, which is where I went to school. And I worked with my professor there and I did marketing for a bunch of their films. And I went and I'd never been to a film festival. I'd never seen like really that many international films. And I saw A Prophet, which is a French film, and I saw Auditions, which is Denis Villeneuve's like third or fourth film that was nominated for the Oscar. And they were a Quebec film and a French film.
Hmm.
And I kind of pinned my like deciding I'm gonna make movies on that day. I saw those movies back to back, and it like really affected me. In like, I didn't know you could make movies like that. Like their voices were so different than anything I had ever seen. It was just like, and they're very different films. Like they're just completely different, but they're quite emotional kind of character studies. Like A Prophet is probably the most gruesome, gritty prison film I've ever seen. And Auditions is just this unbelievable, terrible story of this mother's kind of plight. But I saw those films and I ended up moving to England a couple years later with my now wife, and I went to film school there. I started making short films in kind of my evenings, and there's a really good like arts community in England, and I kind of just fell in love with the art form, and I kind of realized like this is always what I was meant to do. I just didn't find it till late in my life. So I produced for like years because my, you know, I guess my like built muscle is to fall back on my like business acumen because that's what all my education's in. But I've been trying to like vomit that out of me for the last like 5, 6 years. I think it helped. It helped like getting this show made, but I've been trying to like re-educate myself in all the different art forms that meld into making a great film. But that's what it was for me. Yeah, I just saw two films that just really inspired me, and then kind of went on a re-education journey in my evenings in England.
Right.
So I did film school there, lots of short films. I produced a documentary that premiered in New York while I was there. So yeah, that was kind of my journey was just realizing late in life, well, not late, I guess my early 20s, that like this is not how I want to spend the rest of my life. So.
And now the cool thing is there's going to be kids seeing your stuff and being like, wow, the black square, I want to make cool shit like that. You're inspiring a whole new generation yourself. So look at you go.
I hope so. Well, I mean, I made it for me, right? If
Right.
somebody else watches it and likes it, great. I tried to make something I thought was cool, and I hope people fuck with it.
Now that you've gone through the whole process of creating something and selling it and getting it out to the world, what would you say is your favorite part about being in the business, about being a filmmaker? What do you love the
My
most?
I like storytelling in general. Like to me, I've always thought whether it's a campfire, the dinner table, screenwriting, you know, coming up with an ad at work, like I enjoy the art of storytelling, whatever the medium. I find most people love set. I find set terrifying because there's just a gun to your head and you're just against the clock.
From
I
a
I
producer's standpoint, that makes total sense. Yeah, yeah.
well, it's what it is. I I got more comfortable with it as we went along because I think by the second, third episode, I'd had enough reps under my belt. But like to me, screenwriting is the most fun because there's no time limit and it's done when it's done, and you just live with it. You live with the story for so long, and I love that part of it. And I also love post production because one of my like good friends is my editor, and it's literally sitting there with a case of beer and being like, "All right, we are hacking at this slab of marble until we get to it, and we're gonna stop when it's done." And I love that part. I even love like we get to a fine cut, and I still go through the dailies and try to find a little moment that I might have missed. So I really enjoy post production and screenwriting. Sets growing on me, but I don't know. There's something nice about the freedom of no constraints of time to tell a story when you're screenwriting. And then I also love the process of finding stuff in the edit that you didn't know was there. I
Right.
think that's some of the most fun part of the process to me.
Actors, are you ready to shoot your strongest monologue yet? Join our free monologue challenge. You'll learn to tackle monologues with expert guidance and professional insights. This is perfect for new actors and seasoned pros. The monologue challenge is designed to help you develop your confidence, polish your delivery, and elevate your acting and monologue skills. Do not miss this chance to push yourself to new heights. Sign up now at actorsauditionclub.com/challenge. That's actorsauditionclub.com/challenge, and get ready to shoot your strongest monologue yet so you can showcase your unique talent to agents, casting, and producers. Sign up now at actorsauditionclub.com/challenge. Yeah, there's that saying that you really have three scripts: the script you write, the script you shoot, and then the script that you edit. And by the end, it's really three different movies in that process. You, you talked about the set. So I was only up there for, I think our episode was shot over 5 days, which was a real tight, I would say fairly tight to get everything we did in like a 30-minute episode in 4.5 days or whatever it was. You were there for longer. I remember, I don't think you were sleeping at all. What was that month like for you being so sleep deprived?
I think it was. I tried to like enjoy it as much as I could, because it's like you're not going to have that again for another couple years. But if I'm honest, I bit off more than I can chew, like show running, producing, directing, and you didn't see it because you were only there a little while, and I think we did a really good job of hiding the burning dumpster fire that was just behind me at all times. And we had a really good team on it.
Yeah.
So like the
Oh, the
thing that
crew was amazing. Cast and crew,
the
everyone was
crew was
amazing. Yeah.
yeah, the cast and crew was fantastic, but there was a lot of like I would be directing and see my producing partners whispering off on the side, and I'd be like, "What's going on?" They're like, "Don't worry." And then you get off set, and you're like, "Oh, I need to worry." Like there's whatever problem. So that they
Right.
were really good at insulating me while I was directing, which I appreciate, and I think it made a big difference in like the quality of my work coming out. But yeah, it was a lot, man. It was like I like to say it was my master's in film production. Like we
Mhm.
did six different, mini movies. And, you think that, hey, they're 30 minutes, you're making a short film. And it's like, we had 40 something locations. We had one day on set where I looked at the call sheet. I was like, we have 120 people working for us. I'm like, this is insane. Like, it's like, you'd like, I'd be like doing scouting and crap. And then I would like go to set and like see you guys. And then I would like drive to the school and they'd be building a new set for something we're
Right.
shooting in like 3 days. And it was like that part of it was awesome. Like it was awesome to just be like creatively involved in so many different things. But then it was a lot, man. So I think we'll probably get a bit more help on the next one. But I'm glad we did it the way we did because I learned so much in the process.
Yeah, I mean, occasionally the odd actor I'll meet will complain about a day on set or how long it is. Or in my early days when I would do some background, there was the group of background actors who would show up and at the sign-in desk when they're reporting for work, asking when they're going to be wrapped. It's like you just fucking got here and you're already trying to leave early. But I always feel that as an actor, we have the easiest schedule compared to crew because crew call is usually a few hours earlier and they're usually there for wrap after. There is a culture in filmmaking of like everyone needs to be sleep deprived. I know that people are on regular shows where like it's a big Hollywood show that's shooting for 4 months or something where they don't really have a life. Do you think that culture will ever change? There's a little bit of like pride, be like, I haven't slept, but it's like physically if you're not sleeping, it's basically the equivalent of cognitively of like being drunk. So there's like, are you getting the best work out of someone when they're working 18-hour days and never sleeping? There's safety issues of falling asleep coming to and from set. Like, is there a world, do you think, where a 10-hour or maybe a max 12-hour day is a thing and we can get away from this like there is a real badge of honor to be like, oh yeah, I worked so hard, none of us fucking slept. We're all disasters, and isn't that great? That's the way it's supposed to be. But I feel like there is a better way. Is that possible, or is it just a money thing? It's a locations thing.
Well, well, I'll give you the producer answer and then like how I really feel about it. So like I think your job as a producer is to make sure that no one has to go through that but you. So like I went through that, but
Right.
like I think we did 3 hours of overtime total across 3 hour or 2.5 hours of TV. So in 16 shoot days, I only kept the crew 3 days over, and in total it was 3 hours. I think it was like 30 minutes, 15 minutes. Like it wasn't
Right.
significant. So we never did more than a 12 plus one. And we tried to be really reasonable about the shoot time. So we tried to make it work with what we had, right? That said, how I feel like as an indie filmmaker is like I've never had the luxury of having proper budget or proper time. So I like we had a running joke of like at our Airbnb, it was like multiple producers sleeping there. And I had taken a picture of John sleeping on like an air mattress in the basement. And I was gonna put it up in the production office and just put like $2 million budget question mark with the photo of like where we're sleeping. And it's like I don't expect the cast and the crew and the staff to go through that, but it
Right.
was meant to just be like the dollars should go on screen and should
Right.
go for like safety and security and like getting the best performance out of everyone. It shouldn't go to like silly stuff. And that's what we were trying to show is like, I don't expect anyone else to go through that, but that's what I was willing to do to make the best show possible. So yeah, I think there needs to be that balance, but like at the budget we had for what we made, I think we did a really good job. The stuff that like I never compromise on is like security, safety, like that's you just have to have extra money like aside for that stuff, making sure that we're wrapping and not working everyone late. I think we did a pretty good job. Like I've done films where we do non-union 15-hour days and we did 3 weeks like like straight, and by like the second week everyone's dying. Like you can't do that to people. So I've made those mistakes in the past. So I think we did a pretty good job of like, breaking at lunch on time, wrapping on time, all that type of stuff. But I'm not going to act like behind the scenes, I wasn't there with duct tape and band-aids trying to hold the thing together. So I think I think there is a bit of that as well. So you have to kind of like trade off, like what are you willing to do, and then what can you be willing to ask other people to do, and you have to be reasonable with that. And I think that's super important. I think we were fair about that on our show. I don't think we, had you guys in like shitty motels and work until, 15, 16-hour days. We tried to make sure everyone was treated fairly.
Right. No, from my standpoint, like I said, I felt good. It was watching you and a handful of others, but now that I think about it, it's producers and showrunners that were the worst off, because you guys were up all night doing for the next day and planning everything. Cool.
We'll try to be better on the next one, but I think I'd be lying if I didn't say that like the goal is to do what we have to do to make sure you guys are comfortable.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And from looking at everything that I've seen, the show punches above its weight. Like, and I think you mentioned this, someone said that like each episode looks like it's 2 or 5 million, or like whatever. I don't know the exact budget, but
we pretty much
looks better than the budget. Yeah.
Yeah. Like we I think people can critique it online, but like anyone who produces that I've spoken to about it has said to me that we basically made a show for what the cost of one episode normally is. And I don't think that translates to the screen in terms of it showing up as like poor performances or poor quality. I think the quality, we stand on the quality, but yeah, I'm not going to act like I wasn't living on Pita Pit, sleeping in the basement for like a fucking, like 2 months.
It's called paying your dues, kid.
Yeah, that's
paying
right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Can you remind people how they can watch Tales from the Void?
Definitely. Tales from the Void is on Screenbox in the US, Super Channel in Canada. It is, I don't know when are you putting this out, by the way?
It'll probably be in the next week or two. Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're having a marathon on Super Channel this weekend, but you can also watch it on anywhere you can get digital shows. So Google Play Store, Amazon Prime, Apple TV. We're able to, you're able to rent and buy, and then we are hopefully coming to Europe. Well, I shouldn't say hopefully, we're coming to Europe soon.
Cool. And on the show, we love to talk about future aspirations and manifestation, and put out the good vibes for the next iterations of our lives and careers. So what is next for Tales from the Void, or for you in general, or for Envoi Entertainment? What's the next big thing?
We've got a lot going on, actually. So our company's doing a bunch of like service productions now. So we're kind of helping other people get their movies made in Canada. So my producing partner Barkley is kind of working on a couple things with that right now. For me, I'm working with John on an adaptation of potentially a novel for the screen that I can't talk too much about yet. But we've got 2 or 3 features that I'm just trying to figure out which I'd like to do. I have one that I've written that I'm really happy with, and one that I am just finishing a draft of now. And then for Tales, there's some convos about season 2. So just trying to figure out what's the next move. Is it doubling down on TV, or is it trying to go to feature land? I think my heart's always been trying to make a feature, but I want the show to be a success. So I think if we get the call for season 2, it might get pulled back in. So we'll see how it goes.
Cool. Congrats. Well, yeah, again, congrats on Tales from the Void. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be a part of that. That week in Sault Ste. Marie is going to be one of my favorite memories of all time. And the friendships that I've gained from the cast and getting to meet you and my experience with a director like Joe Lynch was incredible. So thank you
He's
for
the
that.
best.
And I'll wait for the audition opportunities for the next projects. Unless I'm maybe
100%.
after this all blows
You're
up,
front of the line, dude.
I'll be
You're front
so
of the line.
famous, I'll be offer only by that point, right? Because then
There
I'll
you
be
go.
the guy from Tales from the Void.
There you go.
Can you just share any final parting words of wisdom to aspiring filmmakers, aspiring actors? What can you tell them to keep them going?
I always say this game is a stamina game. So just keep making shit. Like there's been this project died 6 or 7 times and we just kept pushing it. And I think just keep making films and eventually you kind of find your way. And I would say, I've studied other people's ways of making it in the industry and carved a completely different path for myself. That's unlike anyone look at as a mentor. So you kind of find your own way. And I think it's just about being persistent and keeping doing it and doing it because you love it. And, eventually it kind of works out.
There you have it. Thank you for listening to Inside the Audition. Make sure to watch Tales from the Void, and we'll see you on the next episode. Hey, this is Joey Freddie Larson. I want to say thank you so much for listening to another fantastic episode of Inside the Audition. If you're still struggling with your self-tape auditions, now is the time to join Actors Audition Club. You'll get expert coaching, practical tips, and support from a community that is dedicated to helping actors succeed. Our members receive personalized guidance, insider advice that ensures every audition reflects your true talent. If you're serious about booking more roles and leveling up your audition game, Actors Audition Club is the place to be. Visit www.actorsauditionclub.com to join today and make sure that you make your next audition count. Once again, you can join at actorsauditionclub.com and we will help you shoot standout auditions in less time.